All right, today we're diving into something pretty fascinating and honestly a bit controversial. It's a document called the Full 360 Sovereign Technical Manual, and it lays out this pretty radical system for taking control of your financial and legal life by basically operating completely outside the way things are normally done. Right from the get-go, the manual hits you with this provocative question. Is the whole financial system we live in just a trap, designed to keep us all in debt? And then it presents itself as the way out. The sovereign solution. So that's the premise we're going to break down, pulling everything directly from its pages.
To really get a handle on its logic, we're just going to follow the manual's own roadmap. First, we'll look at the problem it claims exists. Then we'll get into its big solution, this idea of a trust. After that, we'll cover the nuts and bolts of how you'd build one, the legal plays it recommends, and finally, what it calls the endgame, settling the accounts for good.
Okay, so part one. The problem. According to this manual, our entire commercial world operates under what it calls a debtor-creditor paradigm. In their view, pretty much every interaction you have, whether it's getting a loan or even just receiving a bill, automatically puts you in the position of being the debtor. It's the default setting.
This slide really shows you the core idea. The manual says we're all living on the left side, in debtor status, where you're always on the hook, always owing something. The goal is to jump over to the right, to become the grantor of your own private trust. From that position, they argue you're the one in control and you can settle things using equity, not by taking on more debt. Now, to really wrap your head around this, you have to understand a super important concept from the manual, the straw man. They define it as a corporate fiction. Think about it. You ever see your name written in all capital letters on a bill or court document? The manual claims that's not actually you, the live man as they put it. It's a totally separate legal entity that the public system created just to be able to contract with.
So if that's the problem, then what's the fix? Well, the manual's entire strategy really boils down to one single action. You have to proactively express a trust to completely sidestep that debtor system.
And this quote right here really captures the mindset. It's all about switching from being on the defense, always reacting, to getting on the offense. You proactively set up your own terms by creating this expression of trust from the very beginning.
The manual is also really clear about what you shouldn't do. It takes a direct shot at other popular theories, like accept for value, and says they're just plain flawed. Why? Because in their view, those methods still play within the established commercial rules. You end up just creating new debt, which keeps you trapped in the exact system you're trying to escape. All right, let's get into the mechanics of how this all supposedly works. This is the real how-to section where the manual lays out the step-by-step process for actually building this trust.
It all kicks off with 4 elements they say are absolutely essential. You've got to document your intent to create the trust, define its specific purpose, name all the parties involved, and, this is the really unique part, you have to define the specific res. That's just a fancy term for the property of the trust.
And how do you define this specific res? Well, it's a very distinct process. The manual tells you to create it by mailing a document to yourself using registered mail. The tracking number from that piece of mail, the RA number, that number becomes the unique identifier for the trust's property. The players in this drama are also laid out very clearly. You, the individual, are the grantor, the one who creates the whole thing. The organization that thinks it holds the debt, like a bank or a court, gets named as the trustee, and now they are supposedly obligated to follow your instructions as the grantor. The claimant, well, they're the beneficiary, the one entitled to the final settlement. Then you have this 3-step process to get the ball rolling. First, you endorse that document with the RA number. Second, you deliver it to the trustee you've named, and you do it via certified mail. And third, you file a UCC form to assign the interest. The manual claims this sequence of events legally flips the script, putting the entire burden of performance on the trustee. Okay, so you've built the trust, but how in the world do you get anyone to recognize it? This is where the manual introduces its big legal play, what it calls the in-camera strategy.
The whole strategy rests on this one belief. The manual says that in a regular public court, the live man, that's you, is basically invisible. The court only sees and recognizes that corporate fiction, the straw man. So, if you want a fair hearing for the trust, you have to get out of the public courtroom.
So what's the tool they recommend? A protective order. The move is to argue that your trust documents are confidential trade secret information. And according to the manual, that legal maneuver basically forces a judge to take a look at your evidence privately in their chambers, or in camera.
This slide really shows what they call the mirror image principle. It's central to the strategy. Out in public court, only the corporate fiction has a voice. But once you get into those private chambers, they claim the roles completely flip. The live man can finally speak in equity, and the corporate fictions have to stay silent.
And all of this leads to the final goal of the entire process, achieving what they call a final settlement and completely zeroing out the account that started this whole thing.
The theory here is that for every public debt, there's a matching private asset sitting in that strawman account. The end game, then, is to merge these two mirrored titles, the public debt and the private asset. The moment they come together, boom, the ledger balances out to zero.
And this might be the most startling claim in the whole manual. What does it take to trigger this settlement? You might think it's a huge payment, but no. The manual asserts that all it takes is introducing just 1 penny of real money on the private asset side of the ledger. That 1 cent, they claim, acts as a catalyst to wipe out the entire public debt it's connected to.
So what happens after you've successfully settled an account? The manual recommends setting up a new 2-part system for the future. You put your assets into a new private trust. That trust then generates interest, and you direct that interest into a public-facing nonprofit. It's a structure they claim allows you to use the funds without them being taxable.
Now, to back all this up, the manual presents its own unique interpretation of American history. It draws a line from the unalienable rights of 1776, moves through the Civil War, and then points to the 1933 decision to go off the gold standard. It frames its whole strategy as the logical, necessary solution to this historical chain of events.
So, there you have it. That's the system laid out in the Sovereign Technical Manual. It's a really detailed process, but it's all rooted in a very unique interpretation of law and commerce. And it's really important to state, this framework is widely considered an alternative, or fringe, legal theory. It's not recognized by mainstream courts and is often linked with the sovereign citizen movement. So that leaves us with a big question. Is this some undiscovered manual for financial freedom, or is it just a highly complex and legally unrecognized theory? Understanding what it claims is one thing, but whether it holds up in the real world, that's a whole other story.